I got to warn you, when Rob approached me and asked me to present today, my first question was, why me? He's like, I want you to be very controversial. And I'm like, well, I'm in. That sounds fun, because I like controversy, and I like basically forcing the debate, because I think our industry could benefit a lot from that. So are we ready to go here? All right, let's start the controversy. All bars, no bucks. How telcos built everything and monetized nothing. Basically, we're going to talk right now about telcos. And I have a love-hate relationship with this industry. I love the fact that over the last 25 years, we've deployed these fantastic networks. But I hate the fact that we've always overhyped them, oversimplified them, and underdelivered against them. And even worse than that, we're really good at the connection side. We're not very good when it comes to collections. We're not good at monetizing our networks. Let me explain what I mean by that. If you go all the way back to GPRS, who made money on that? It was RIM and BlackBerry. It was the devices and the BES servers. On 3G, we did a little bit better, but that's because we had punitively high data rates and roaming charges, but those got erased. By the time 4G came around, all the real money was being made by the people in the app stores. LPWAN, narrowband IoT, remember that one? That worked really well, didn't it? Nobody made any money except China, which is a complete unique case, and they made a lot of money. Separate discussion. And now we're on 5G, ultra connected. Who's making the money? The hyperscalers. They pay you $1, they make $10 on the back of it. So what we're going to talk about is, can telcos innovate? A little bit of background on myself. Beginning of my career is not interesting to you at all. I was an investment banker for 10 years in Chicago, moved to Amsterdam. But then around the dot-com era, I moved over to a consulting firm, and I went in to join O2 right when they were launching the BlackBerry and the XDA. And this is when we first started going into complex solutions in that space. Then moved over to Vodafone when they were doing complex solutions, going into secure remote access. We actually launched the first UC as a service solution back in 2007 or 2008, so we're talking 17, 18 years ago. Finally left Vodafone, got sick of the rain in London, moved to Singapore, became head of innovation for BT for Asia. And this is when we were going from MPLS and on-premise solutions to putting everything in the cloud. So how do you transform BT internally to actually take that to market and explain it to our customers? Then I went over to the analyst side, and I was the head of IoT, mobility, and telecoms in Asia Pacific for IDC for a number of years. So a lot of this was about doing go-to-market for emerging tech. I've worked for 3 of the world's biggest operators. I've had another 30 plus in 15 countries as well. Now I'm in this weird period, which I guess are like my ecosystem years. I've got my own strategy consulting firm. It's just me, so it's not a big one. I got a podcast because I like to talk. But I also do a number of other interesting things. I spent a number of years as a senior advisor for McKinsey. I do a lot of stuff in venture capital with the guys from Spark Labs. Did a lot in the city space. So Taipei City was a client for about a decade. I sit on the board of the Global Organization of Smart Cities. I was a visiting scholar at Stanford on smart cities research, and then I did a really weird thing, and I became the chief strategy officer at a company called 8. And none of you will have heard of it because it's a design firm. I went to go work with a bunch of architects, which makes no sense. Now at this point you're going, so what do you actually do? And it's really complicated. Let's come back to it later. For now, let's move on to innovation. And this is how I look at innovation. Basically, we've got these things. They're tech enablers, and we're trying to solve pain points. It can be for a consumer, it can be for our businesses. In between all of that, we've got these ICT vendors who work together to create solutions and take them to the customers. Now, what we're trying to do is leverage these concepts, these enablers, to then partner with different vendors in the ecosystem to create a solution that we sell and we solve a problem. Easy peasy, right? It gets a bit more complicated. When I'm talking about enablers, that could be a device. Remember back when the BlackBerry launched, if there's some people as old as me who remember this, when you finally had mobile email in the palm of your hand, it was great until you realized you just gave away your work-life balance, because now they can contact you whenever you want. But then it can also be different types of technologies, like 5G and AI are great enablers. It can be a buzzword, like IoT or smart cities, or it can be a capability. What these organizations, these hyperscalers are bringing, are enabling the wider market. Now in ICT, this can be anything from your smallest startup to the largest hyperscaler and everything in between. But what's important about this is when you think about technology, you think about your company. When I think about it is how do you work with the other people in here to create a solution? Because almost every solution is going to have some kind of an endpoint. It's going to connect over a network, go through multiple different types of platforms to an app that we can then use. All that's got to be integrated and secured. Multiple products, multiple vendors for one solution. Then we take it out to our customers who are enterprises, public sector, whatever it is, and we solve pain points. Sometimes we want to make money, cut costs, grow a new portfolio so we can drive new revenue streams and business models. Maybe it's about the quality of service of our networks. Maybe it's just about reducing fraud and doing identity management. So the basic things. But then around that, who also influence this ecosystem is important. You've got these influencers. Think about what Musk is doing with Starlink. Whether you like him or not, what Starlink is doing is pretty fascinating. Think about Steve Jobs and what he did with Apple. Think about Tim Kobe, who nobody here would have ever heard of, but he's the guy who was approached by Steve Jobs 25 years ago and said, I want to build a retail store concept. And if you think about what an Apple store is, from the design to the behaviors that all the employees have, he designed all of that. Coincidentally, that's why I went to go work for that firm 8. He's the founder of 8. So I wanted to study for 2 years, how do you take that same model that created an Apple store, those behaviors and human outcomes, and take that approach with technology? Then you've got your market makers, your industry analysts, you've got your strategy firms as well. And then you have the industry associations, like this one, like GSMA, who try and pull people together. You got your innovation hubs. Singapore used to be a big one when I was there. Then that faded away. It's all now in the Middle East. For smart cities, Taipei was probably the biggest innovation hub. You've got the academia who gets involved with us. You've got VC and investment who fund it. And you've got regulatory who then puts the reins on it all and says, actually follow these rules. So this is the incredibly fragmented ecosystem that we look at when we talk about innovation. You don't have to work with all of them, but you need to understand the different roles they play and what it's going to take for you to drive innovation through. And now let's see what happens. So let's talk about 5G. So 5G was this great enabler. And the brightest minds from the ICT sector, from the telcos, and all these influencers got together. And what did we come up with? You can download a movie in seconds. I hate this. I remember the first time I heard it, I'm like, I don't download movies, I stream them. I use Netflix. I felt like I was in a Black Mirror episode, and the entire world forgot what Netflix is and streaming services are, and we thought we still downloaded movies. This is what we pushed out. We completely forgot what we were trying to do. We stopped thinking. We didn't think about, okay, this is great. Who do we partner with to take it to market? To which customers, and how do we actually solve a problem? We stopped thinking. When we did think, we didn't think well. This is an actual online ad campaign that was running in Singapore when I was there during 5G. And Singtel came out and thought, I got a great idea. I'm going to put out an online ad campaign saying 4G, 5G versus Wi-Fi 6. When should you use each? It's the question that everybody really wanted to know, right? People don't care about that. And that was their good one. The next one they read is, what are the differences between an SA and NSA network? This was going to consumers. People do not care about the technology. They care about the problem you solve, and we completely forgot about that. And I know what a lot of you are thinking. It's really easy to bash 5G. So what? So fine, I'll give you an example of a telco who actually did a pretty decent job of driving innovation over the last 15 years. It's Telstra out of Australia. The first thing they wanted to do was leverage a startup environment. So they created this thing called Murudi, and basically went out there and started investing in anything that had a fancy buzzword associated with it. AR, VR, 5G, drones, edge, satellite, you name it. But they ended up investing in about 130 of these startups over the years. And it's quite interesting because they thought we can use these to drive activity on our network. And they did it really well in Australia, so they took the same thing over to Singapore. So this helped them really source innovation that they could run on their network. The next thing they wanted to look at was IoT. And from nothing to 12 months later, they went from having a crap portfolio to having the best. And I can say this because this conversation happened. I'm in Sydney. I met with the guy they brought in to run this IoT group. He positioned me on the portfolio they had at the start. Afterwards, he pulls me aside and he says, tell me the truth, how shit is my portfolio? First time I've met him, I didn't want to be mean. I said, honestly, you know, it's comparable to what else you're going to get in the region. And he's like, how shit is their offering? I'm like, it's pretty shit. So he went from that to having the region's leading IoT solution portfolio in 12 months. And what he did was he didn't focus on the enablers, he focused on the pain points. He looked at all the verticals, their biggest pain points, and then basically bought some companies, built some solutions, and then partnered with other people. In 12 months, he went from nothing to growing this fantastic portfolio. And he started selling differently. They have this sensor that you stick in a sewer. It's really boring stuff. But when you put it in the sewer, it was great because you can talk about the cost of it, right? Well, no one cares about the cost of it. He talks about the TCO. He talked to them about truck rolls. Now, truck rolls in this thing means what does it cost you to go out and repair it? If you talk about things that matter to a COO and you show them how they're going to save a ton of money, the rest of the discussion becomes very easy. This allowed them to grow their portfolio and new revenue streams. Next, they went out with digital twins. Now, this I thought was crazy because what is a telco doing with a digital twin? They partnered with Microsoft. They created this cutting-edge platform to create a digital twin of a building. And the idea was that they were going to deploy it internally first at their own offices and then take it out to the wider market. And this is crazy, but when you think about it, Australia is a different market. Telstra dominates the entire market. Every enterprise customer, public sector customer, they all work with Telstra. And they had the largest systems integrator. So suddenly it went from being crazy to one of the coolest new things you could possibly take to market with a market that's actually ready to accept it. And then finally, when GenAI came out, they really started cranking through it quickly. I built a number of apps on top of it. They built this thing called a one-sentence summary. And it's real simple. If you're a call center agent, a sales staff, if I tell you my name, you have one sentence that summarizes my entire relationship for you. Did the same thing with Ask Telstra. You can now go into all the product portfolios. They leverage these things to provide a better service. So what they did was really navigate through this ecosystem relatively well. But how well did they do? In 2020, they killed the startup program. Now they just focus on partnerships. And an interesting thing happened. They invested in 130 companies. Their corporate venture capital group, which does the major investments, didn't invest in one because none of them made sense for Telstra. So they might have made some money out of doing that. It had nothing to do with driving business for Telstra as a whole. On IoT, I showed you those great numbers, 10 million connections, nearly 300 million in revenue. They hit all that in the first few years. And then the key innovators left. Those people who actually could do that solution selling got bored with the bureaucratic culture. Now they're in a period of growth deceleration. They were doing high double-digit growth rates for a number of years. Now they're in low single digits, and in some years it's been negative. They've got a bureaucratic challenge and cultural skill gap. Digital twins, it was an excellent solution, but I was going in between Microsoft and Telstra, and neither of them knew what to do with it. So what they ended up doing, because they couldn't get the management buy-in, they couldn't get budget to build it out, wrong headcount, they said, fine, we're just going to use it for our networks instead, which still adds value. But they suffered from this sophistication paradox. Sometimes we have a concept that's very complex to explain and not easy for the other party to understand, especially if they're not technical. So the GenAI side, they did very well. They drove human-machine collaboration and did deliver value. But the thing I'm trying to explain out of this is that innovation is complex and it's very hard to drive. And even if you build a wonderful technical solution and it works perfectly, it doesn't mean it's going to be adopted. There's always the people and cultural issues around there as well. Since we're talking about complexity, let's talk about network APIs. Now, I couldn't see the hands earlier because I was facing forward. How many people are experts in network APIs? Okay, good. You guys can critique me on this one. But the rest of you, I'm here to solve it. I'm going to make it really simple for you. Because if you know what this is, you know what network APIs are and how the whole ecosystem works. Now, the people who are laughing are Dutch, because you know what FEBO is. And I have to explain to the rest of you what FEBO is. See, I went to school here in the 90s. FEBO is the Netherlands' contribution to international fine dining. These are the shops that you go out all night with your friends, you drink far too much, you're walking home like, I just need a cheeseburger. Ooh, there's a coin-operated box, I stick a coin in and I can pull out a cheeseburger. These things scare the hell out of me because that cheeseburger could be from earlier in the day, or it could be left over from the late 80s and it's the one that's still there. So, but this, if you understand this, I'll make you understand network APIs. Because let's look at it this way. I'm hungry and I want to get a cheeseburger, so I could go to FEBO. But I don't. I've never been there in my life. Full disclosure, it scares me. I'd rather go to a restaurant where I can get a decent burger because they might have different types of beef I can choose from, better ingredients, better types of cheeses. So I want to go for that. But then the thing is, that restaurant, it's got really bad service. The waiters and waitresses, they annoy me, that's really poor. So you know what I'm going to do is, I still want the burger, I'm going to go through Uber Eats instead. So they're going to deliver the burger to me. That restaurant, that's good for them because they're getting new business without having to fill up the seats at the restaurant. It's good for me. Uber's making money as well. Everybody wins. The restaurant then thinks, actually, you know what? We're bringing in these really good tomatoes from Spain. They have a lot of flavor, not like the Dutch water bomb tomatoes that you get that have no flavor at all. And they bring in really good cheeses and meats. They're going to start selling those ingredients directly. And they start selling them out to Uber Eats as well. And Uber's going, wow, this is good, but we need to get a personal assistant to help me manage this complexity. Because I want to make sure that that hungry person's getting access to his FEBO, his restaurant burger, or his ingredients. But that personal assistant, a bit overworked. So he hires somebody who just does context. And that person's job is to know me. And he's going to look at me going, okay, it's a cold day in summer, it's rainy, he wants a burger and a glass of red wine. But if it's a hot, sunny day, he knows I'm going to want fish and maybe a white wine. But then he knows on Saturdays I like to cook, and let's say today's a Saturday. He's going to go and tell that personal assistant, it's Saturday, Charles wants to cook, let's go find him some ingredients. He's then going to go out there and talk to his freshness guy. And the freshness guy basically knows what are the best ingredients on that day. He tells the personal assistant, who then goes out to his ordering guy, who manages the order for him, and then he orders it, and the delivery guy manages all the logistics. And suddenly, I've got my ingredients. This is the network API ecosystem. You're now all experts. You're welcome. Okay, so actually, this is how it goes. That hungry customer is a business customer, and that FEBO is your traditional telco. That's offering basic services. I can buy a data plan. I can buy a SIM. Also, then there's certain telcos that do value-added services that are more interesting to work with, and some of them are saying, actually, you want to buy my ingredients? That's your network APIs. That CPaaS vendor, that's your Uber Eats, and that personal assistant, that's your AI. When I was talking about context, delivery, freshness, ordering, these are how you're going to leverage agents to offer a differentiated service. Now, this gets exciting for everybody in the ecosystem. For telcos, they can leverage agents as well and deliver a better service out to that hungry person or the business customer. But what you're seeing is it's getting really competitive. It's a great opportunity for CPaaS vendors to really differentiate and run business through them before they get to the telco. Because let's face it, business customers don't like bad waiters or bad service from telcos. So they might want to avoid that and deal with that Uber Eats. So it's a great opportunity for CPaaS. Bad news is the hyperscalers and system integrators, they want to launch Deliveroo because they see this as an interesting ecosystem. They know they can do it as well with the same model. This is the ecosystem you're looking at with network APIs. So now it's all about a cheeseburger. So you can remember that next time you're out there trying to explain that to your boss and why you need a bunch of money. But in reality, what we're doing is we're talking about this enabler. Nobody has figured out yet how we're going to deliver this, or at least I haven't heard of it. Who are we partnering with? What are we going to sell? What problems are we going to solve? It's just not happening yet. And the question I get asked a lot is, can telcos actually monetize this? And I'm like, well, first of all, can you overcome that sophistication paradox? This is just like digital twins. It's a complex term. People don't understand it. You want to build out an API business? You need headcount. Try and get budget for headcount when you can't explain what you're going to do, for who, and how you're going to make money. Good luck with that. Next, do they have a defined go-to-market strategy? Which they don't. Do they have the right skill sets? Not yet. Do they have the right culture to attract and retain the best talent? Probably not. Do they operate like a techco or a utility? And this is the biggest risk, I think, for telcos right now. You need to transform the way you treat your business customers, and you need to be more like these technology vendors and these techcos. You can't keep acting like a utility, or you will just be the bit pipe and you'll keep getting squeezed. And then finally, are they trusted? If I'm a bank in the UK, would I trust going to Vodafone? Actually, probably yes, because Vodafone's trusted. What if I'm in another Southeast Asian country where maybe that incumbent isn't as strong? Would I trust them with it, with my business critical information? Depends on the country you're in. So now we've covered off network APIs. Let's talk about AI. I'm going to talk about it in 3 segments. I want to make sure everyone understands this differentiation, because we throw AI around a lot. There's a lot of different things. Traditional AI is what we've been using for a year. It learns from past experiences. It learns from what we've done, and it tries to basically replace human tasks and decision-making. It's basically a really basic chatbot. It's as simple. It's a decision tree. GenAI is different because it's all about human-machine collaboration. And this collaboration gets interesting because it allows us to do a lot of cool things. And when we talk about agentic, it's about acting. It acts with context. That's why I put context above the burger guy, because that context is what makes things interesting. You don't just do on what's happened. You take in tertiary data sources and you understand what the context is and you act accordingly. And it basically takes us from having a co-pilot to a co-worker. But I want to go back to GenAI because it is fascinating to me. It transforms the way that we interact with technology because now technology speaks our language. We can actually talk like a normal human being to technology. And this has been so transformative, and we've seen this in the adoption. When we talked about traditional AI, the stats from McKinsey, over a period of 7 years, they got up to 78% of enterprises were leveraging AI. But then when it came to GenAI, in just 12 months, because remember, this only came out in 2022, basically it went from 33 to 71. And this is already from last year. So people are adopting this. Now, time out, we're doing a segue. When I talked to Rob last week, I was walking him through my deck, and he said, "You're going to be pretty negative. Are you going to end it on a high?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course. I got some great use cases I can show that are really positive." And I hung up the phone. I'm like, "Actually, everyone's going to be talking about agentic use cases." And to be fair, he did say that I should be controversial. So let's skip that and let's talk about risks instead and keep down this path. So basically, 95% of GenAI implementations deliver no measurable P&L impact. Now, we've all heard this stat already, whatever. Why are we surprised? We've seen these stats again and again, and I've been using them for over a decade. The latest one from McKinsey said 70% of digital transformations fail. But that was in March 22, so we're probably getting better. Maybe not. BCG said last year it's at 75, and Bain said it's at 88%. So we've got a problem here. Why do we think that we can't deliver digital transformation and applying AI or GenAI or agents is going to be so simple and we're going to be successful at it all of a sudden? And part of the problem is there's 3 key risks that vendors don't tell their customers. And this isn't me saying this. My friend headed up AI and ML for AWS in Southeast Asia. He said this on my podcast directly after he left AWS. So this is his views of what he wouldn't tell customers and why it screws them. Number 1, strategy. Your business case is not properly well-defined. You think it is, it isn't. Number 2, your systems aren't ready for AI. Number 3, it's high. It costs a lot of money to collect all the different data. And basically, this creates a lot of chaos because we're saying it's going to take a lot longer and cost a lot more than you think. It's probably not a great sales line, so I can see why they don't share it up front. But I wanted to go deeper into this, so I started looking at the retail industry for an event that I was doing. And I found out that 67% of retailers actually do completely capture customer data. So that's better than I was anticipating. Only 39% cleanse that data, and 42% harmonize the data. So when that all gets pulled together, only 17% of retailers have a complete single view of customers so they can actually leverage data effectively. Now, when I talk about leveraging data effectively, I'm being able to use GenAI effectively, be able to use agents effectively, and really market to these people. So we don't have this stuff ready to go right now. There's a lot of room for improvement. Bad news, there's more risk to come after you launch. And this is where I think it gets fun because GenAI risks for retailers are out there. We have to worry about bias in our chatbots, hallucinations, and then we have to worry about toxicity. What amazes me is that these percentages aren't actually higher because it is that big of a risk for these organizations, and it's a brand risk. I don't know if you guys have heard about the Air Canada case where its chatbot behaved badly. If you haven't, Google it later. I'm running out of time. It's brilliant. But I had to present at an event in Singapore recently with 1,500 people from travel industry execs. Air Canada was in the audience, and they made me right before the presentation, they're like, "You cannot present that slide." I'm like, "Fine, I'll pull the slide." So I thought, I'll come up with a new one. So I went on to ChatGPT, and I said, I need a few examples of chatbots behaving badly. And it came up with this great one, because it's about Uber Eats, so it's a big brand name. Talked about how that it basically was sending racially insensitive messages, social media backlash, public apology. They had to pull down the chatbot. Brilliant. Start creating the slide. Stop for a second. Why haven't I heard of this before? So I asked ChatGPT, can you give me more information on Uber Eats? Because I don't remember it. And it came back and said, I apologize for any confusion earlier. Upon further investigation, there doesn't appear to have been any documented incident. I asked ChatGPT for a chatbot hallucinating, and it hallucinated. Now, this was scared the hell out of me, because first of all, I was going to create the slide and go on stage in front of that many people. If I did that, that would ruin my credibility, and that would ruin my brand, even though my brand's small, because I'm only a one-person company. What if that's your company or your client's chatbot? These are the things that are out there that scare the hell out of me. We're jumping into all this stuff. We don't understand the risk and how it can damage the brands. So, last bit of bad news, maybe. We'll go with that part. AI agents, they're coming for telcos. So you got to get ready for this one, because it's going to get hectic and it's going to get fun. And this stat came out recently in the FT. It's from Ender's Analysis, and it looks at mobile operator customer net adds versus MVNOs. And if you look over the last few years, the MVNOs are growing customers. Mobile operators are now losing customers the last 2 years. Now, this is interesting because telcos always say, yeah, but we're just letting go the least profitable customers. It's not really the case anymore. Because these MVNOs, they realize we can compete on price, we can provide a better customer experience, and we compete on brand. They have better NPS scores than telcos. A little funny story, when I was at Vodafone, I was in the room when we were talking about our latest NPS scores, and we had the best one in the UK at the time, it was still really bad. And the guy next to me nudged me and he's like, to win at Telcos, you don't have to be the most liked, you have to be the least hated. And that's the telco world to an extent. We've operated like that for a long time now. But what's going to get interesting is this disruption happened through people leveraging digitally native platforms, MVNE type platforms. Now they're going AI platforms. Now this is happening in other industries. That guy who I mentioned from AWS before, he started an AI native ERP software company going after SAP. He's not going to win the multinationals. He's killing it in small, medium-sized companies and large corporates. So it's brilliant. You can do this. Also, I know this guy, and I can't tell you who he is. He made a mint selling his MVNE platform. Absolute mint. Retired, traveled the world for a year. Dropped off in Silicon Valley, went to a meeting, saw people talking about Agentic, called his wife, said, pack up the house and kids, we're moving to California. He's building an AI native platform to go after this market right now. And he thinks will kill what he already built. It's that much faster, better service, better quality, with hardly any headcount, just a bunch of expensive developers. But actually, people are going to go after the consumer segment with this. Some of you have probably looked at these brands. Yes, some of them could actually do it because they have really strong brand value. I don't think the Marlboro MVNO is going to do very well, but since they are in a tobacco place, you never know. Keep an eye on Apple. Number one, it'll be a lot of the other brands first that will do it. I'm waiting for the Apple MVNO. They're selling less and less directly through the carriers right now. They've got the control of the buyer. Why would you not do it? Besides, next year's their 20th anniversary. They need some big splash. Keep an eye on that space. And the next thing they're going to go after is going to be the enterprise space, and this is the more lucrative stream for the telcos. If I'm AWS, I'm going to go to HTC in Taiwan right now. I'm going to have them build me the best phone, load all my stuff on top of it, offer it to all my global customers at half the price of what they can get it from a telco, and I'll still make money because they're going to know how to leverage the AI native platforms on top. So now what? Well, basically buckle up because it's going to be one hell of a ride. We are in a period right now that, without a doubt, this is the biggest period of innovation since the launch of the internet, but we are innovating and we are disrupting much faster than we ever did with the internet. It is tough to keep up, but there's things you can do. As a telco industry, number one, first thing we should do, we should have new benchmarks. We always look at the traditional Western telcos about where they're going to be. In my opinion, if you want to look at the future telco of what it can be in the future, you track EAND out of the UAE and you track STC. They're doing some really, you want 5G millimeter wave? EAN just launched a private 5G millimeter wave network with ADNOC. The stuff they're doing there is way ahead of what I'm seeing out of the other Western telcos right now. And besides, EAN owns almost 20% of Vodafone. STC owns about 20% of Telefonica. These are the interesting guys to watch. Also, start watching your AI native disruptors. They don't have to be in your industry, but track what people are leveraging these things for. Figure out how you can use it internally, figure out how you can defend against it going forward, and then track new innovations. The Middle East is bar none the biggest innovation hub right now. It's fascinating to watch. There's a website and there's a newsletter from Middle East AI News. You will get more updates every week with cool, exciting things than you'll get in 6 months out of Europe. They're doing that much. Doesn't mean it's all going to work, but if you want to keep up to date on what the people are looking at doing, that's the place to start. Next thing, train your staff on AI. I don't mean just give them $50 to go do some online course. Train them properly. Because number one, you're going to stop them wasting time on self-learning. You can help them identify and mitigate some of those risks I talked about earlier. Identify opportunities to improve workflows. Who better to identify them than people who actually do it? See what they do, it's going to reduce your OpEx. You'll get a fast ROI just through the increased productivity. You'll create an innovative culture which will help you attract and retain the best talent. And you're going to future-proof your organization because you're going to need people with these skill sets in the next 2 years. I mean, really, it's not like we're going to say 5 years out. You need these people now. So basically, it'll give you a competitive advantage if you start this today, but it's just table stakes tomorrow. And the final one is just learn how to engage this ecosystem. But when you want to take something to market, you want to talk about a tech enabler, talk about who you're going to partner with, think about how you're going to sell it, to who, and what problem you're actually going to solve. And for any of you who are actually curious about what I actually do, I sit in the middle of this ecosystem and I work with tech vendors, operators, customers, cities, and these influencers and try to make sense of this incredibly fragmented but incredibly interesting industry.